different for me because while I love YA, I'm not a huge romance fan. Yes, I sound hypocritical because I have done a couple other books that deal with romance, but this one is like straight up love at first sight kind of deal. It's a complete and total beach read. It is to make you happy. There are definitely some serious elements, but I I'm one who hates Hallmark movies. Like, this whole romance is the center of the entire novel, and it's gag-worthy kind of thing. Like, just not my deal. So yeah, the fact that that's kind of what this book is, it just caught me by surprise that I liked it so much. And I think what made it so successful was that it was very lighthearted, and it made me want to go to the beach again. It made me want to be a 17-year-old girl who has that summer crush. So let's get into it. The novel is Summer of Sloane by Erin Schneider. I have never heard of her before, and this book is, I think, like 4 or 5 years old, but I would totally read something else by her because she really brought the story alive, and I think a lot of it had to do with the setting. It is set in Hawaii, and I've always thought Hawaii was like a cool destination, but I've never really wanted to go there until I read this book, and now I'm like, Hawaii is awesome! Like, the beaches of Florida and California and South Carolina just can't compare. As I said, it's pretty lighthearted in that it is a total beach read, but there are very serious undertones, and I think that helps to balance it and give it the weight that makes it something worth reading. Because Hallmark movies, like, that's really all I can say about them. It's like, where's the substance? And so I felt like her substance made this a book that I would come back to and made it a book worth my time. What is the book about? I'm glad you asked. It's about a 17-year-old girl named Sloane who at the very beginning of the novel finds out that her boyfriend and her best friend have slept together, and now her best friend is pregnant. Her mother lives in Hawaii, and so every summer she and her twin brother Penn go and visit her. It's the perfect opportunity for her to get out of town. And we also learn that her parents had divorced because her dad had cheated. Her brother ends up, it's not really a cheating situation, but one of their best friends there is dating somebody else, and then one morning Sloane wakes up to find that the best friend had slept over with the brother. And so there's just a lot of kind of trust issues that Sloane has to deal with. And I really liked how Schneider developed this tension and this confusion within Sloane concerning her boyfriend and her best friend. Because yes, while there is a new love interest, it was a complete and total betrayal. And for me, I hold friendships in such high regard that I cannot imagine my best friend of my whole life betraying me like that. Like, I know how it feels when a really good friend who's only been a really good friend for a year or two, how painful that is when something goes wrong between us. Because it's just not an easy situation. Like, you want to say, well, just write them off. But her boyfriend, they'd been together for a year. They'd experienced a lot of things together that had bonded them together. They had known each other their entire lives. He had claimed to be in love with her basically his entire life. So it's like you have these two people who you have such strong bonds to, and it's hard to cut them out, especially because you have such emotional ties to them. And I loved how she could kind of forget sometimes that something had gone wrong. And so her immediate response is to text them or is to tell them what's going on. But then she's like, but I can't. And then she's like, the boyfriend, Tyler, he shows up in Hawaii, and she's like, I still feel this physical pull to him, but this is what he did to me. And so I hate him for it. And then the best friend, for me, Mick, I loved to hate her. Just, it was so fantastic because she's constantly reaching out to Sloane. And you're just like, girl, give it a rest. Do you not realize what you did? This was nothing Sloane did. This was all your fault. Give her a minute. You know what I'm saying? And then as time progresses, it's like Mick gets angry at Sloane, like it's Sloane's fault that they're having problems. And that's where I'm trying to be a devil's advocate, because I can see how the best friend would really, she doesn't want to lose her best friend despite her actions. This Sloane is still important to her, and of course everybody in their circle is going to shun her because she did it. And so you can see how she does want to hang on to something that she ruined. So then how she could get irritated and angry at Sloane because she's like, I'm trying to work things out. I'm trying to reach out to you. Like, why don't you just answer my phone call, answer my text message, answer my email? I wrote you a freaking letter. And so she has this evolvement, or maybe devolvement, until at the very end when, spoiler, if you don't want to know how this all works out, it's time to leave the room. So Mick, I guess, gets into a really depressed state because this is one thing that I wish had been a little bit better explained. She had claimed to be in love with Tyler, and so that's what drove her to pursue him. So then after everything blew up, he still didn't want her. She's upset about the fact that he is still pursuing Sloane, and all of their friends have rejected her. Sloane has essentially rejected her, so she kind of spirals, gets into a car accident, and it's kind of a near-death accident. Sloane naturally flies back to Seattle to see her, and she's so angry with Sloane and Tyler because even though she is the one who caused everything, it's their fault. This is when I say I loved to hate her, because it's like, hello, because even her mother blames Sloane, and it's just like, you think about any fight you've ever had with a friend, everybody has their side. So Sloane has her supporters, Mick has her supporters, and it's just like, how could Mick ever have a supporter? Like, she slept with her best friend's boyfriend. She never let Sloane know that she had feelings for Tyler, yet she's a victim. But yeah, anyway, so Sloane comes and Mick just rejects her. She's like, how can you think anything could ever be okay when this is all your fault? You should have responded to me. How could you be so selfish? And Sloane, I love this. Sloane's like, all I wanted was some time. And that's the thing about novels, is you forget what the time frame, what the timeline really is, because you have to get everything done within a period that won't lose your reader's interest. And so things aren't going to happen as they might in the real world. And so it's only like a month and a half, you know? It's like, in reality, that's not Sorry about that, guys. My brain was just like, hey, I'm going to forget any kind of vocabulary you've ever learned. But a month and a half is not an absurd amount of time for someone to need to think and to process. I just loved how Mick went from somebody who you are sympathetic for and you would like Sloane to reconnect with and to patch things up with, to somebody who you're just like, girl, like, quit playing the victim. You know, like, this is your fault. I love those moments where I'm just like, meh. Anyways, let's talk about Finn, who is Sloane's summer romance, for a moment, because this is the reason why I preferred the beginning of the book to the end of the book. Because Finn, this playboy, this lackadaisical guy who just, you know, he does have issues which make him imperfect and cement him as being more dimensional. But, you know, he's initially introduced as a character who, he's just going to be kind of a fling. And so I really like that. I like that this is helping Sloane and it's giving us a little bit of a something something. But as I said, I hate teenagers who think they are in love, or anybody who thinks they are in love like that. And so Sloane, she had been with Tyler for a year. They had known each other their whole lives, and he was somebody she was really serious about. And so it's not that I think we can't have deep feelings for more than one person, but so soon after, I guess when you have been ripped apart the way she was ripped apart, it's easier for things to come inside and get you emotionally. Summer is only 3 months long, and by that month and a half mark where Mick had her accident, Sloane is already in love with Finn. Got a little too serious for me. So it's not that the book was bad in any sort of way, but personally, it brought it down a few notches, because I could have bought, I really like this guy, it's going to be more than just a fling, but to kind of equate him to how she felt about Tyler, I couldn't buy. And yeah, I just was really disappointed. The thing that I kind of have issue with in some books are unnecessary characters. And in this book, I feel like the most unnecessary characters were Sloane's mother, not necessarily her father. I mean, I understand why her parents were needed in the novel, because they do have that infidelity issue, which kind of helps Sloane come to terms with what has happened to her. But the mother, she somehow hails from Hawaii, which is why she moved back there. But she is a doctor, and her new husband is a doctor of some sort as well. And so they're very busy. And so they just felt like, I just couldn't understand, outside of the whole reason that the mother and father had divorced, why were the parents even there? All her mother did was buy her stuff. She and Penn get off the plane, and her mom's like, hey, what's up? We bought you guys cars. And then they get to the house, and there's all these new gifts on Penn's bed. And then the mother and the stepfather go off for a week or a weekend or whatever, and the mom comes back. She's like, oh, hey, I bought you all this stuff. That's all the mother was there for. There were a couple other moments that, she gave words of wisdom, but it really bothers me when parents are just there because they're parents. They had no role in the book. And for me, this book, it's for any parents reading out there, there is sex, and there's a lot of drinking, and there's language. And so, for me, as much as I loved the book, I really want us to write things that are uplifting for our young readers, because books are so influential, and the people who write them are therefore so influential. And I just felt like, with the parents always gone, it was an automatic opening for the kids to run amok. So I'm like, where was the parenting? If you want the kids to be able to do whatever they want, either send them to summer camp or age them up. I know that's contradictory. You can't have a young adult novel if they're college age. But there are just some instances where I'm like, why did you even include parents if they're not even going to parent? Another important part that I've left out is Sloane breaks her hand because when she finds out what Tyler has done, she punches him, and I think she broke a finger or two. Anyways, so that's kind of an important part of the book. I mean, she gets the cast off pretty soon, and it doesn't actually hinder her from doing anything because she gets a waterproof cast because she's a swimmer. So I thought, that could have been really interesting, where she finds out something has happened. This is how she reacts, and this is her punishment. Now she's gonna be in Hawaii, so now can she not only not do what she loves, just swim, but she can't go to the beach, period. So what's the point in being in Hawaii if you can't be at the beach? So it kind of removed one aspect that could have added layer and dimension, but whatever. This is a beach read, this is a feel-good read, so we'll let that lie. I do kind of wish, I said this, I don't remember if I said I was going to get into it, but I'm going to get into it now. So I do wish Schneider had dove into why Tyler and Mick slept together, like why that actually happened, because it wasn't just once, it was twice. And so that is really what did it for Sloane. He was like, once I can understand because it had happened at a party, so things can get out of hand. But twice, like, what was it that drove them to do it again? And that, I think, is where she failed to develop those two characters a little bit more, because all we see is now they're both super apologetic and they're constantly trying to get Sloane to forgive them. You know, Tyler even flies out to Hawaii, but they never get into it. And she even hinted at it, where when he had come to Hawaii and he was trying to explain things to her, Sloane was like, there's more than he wants to tell me about the reasoning behind it, but I don't want to hear it. And then it's never brought up again. So I'm like, because she never talks to Mick, we only learn that Mick was in love with Tyler because Tyler says it. We only learn that they slept together twice because Tyler mistakenly tells her. So, obviously, with this friendship being so important to both Sloane and Mick, you know, Mick has to have a lot going on inside of her to do something like this. You know, the only thing we ever get from her is there's envy and there's jealousy. Envy is when you want someone to not have something, but jealousy is when you hate them for it as well. Or maybe, what is it? Envy is when you want something of someone else. Jealousy is when you don't want them to have it as well. Something like that. That's really all we get from Mick about why she did what she did. And so I do wish we had learned, like, what drove them to sleep together again. Because that, for me, like with Sloane, that would be the ultimate betrayal. It's not just, we were drunk at a party, things got out of hand. But we've already done it once, and we decided to do it again. Despite how we feel about you, we decided you did not matter enough to us to stop us from betraying you. Yeah, as I said, friendship means a lot to me, so I do wish the whole friendship aspect would have been a bit more of a plot point. But whatever, it could have only made the book better. By not having it didn't necessarily make it worse. I couldn't put it down for the majority of the novel. Towards the end is when it kind of lost me, but I finished it. I liked it at the end. So Sloane, right as everything is coming to a head and she's about to find out about Mick's accident, Sloane has chosen Finn over her friends, where it gets into this whole thing of, like, have I learned nothing? Why am I putting boys above everybody else? And she has dinner with Finn and his father is not a good guy. And then she stands up for Finn, but that ends up causing strife between her and Finn. And so then she automatically has to go to Seattle, and he thinks that he has left because of their fight, and then he gets angry because Tyler answers the phone, so he's thinking, obviously, Finn ran back to Tyler. So Sloane is trying to get in touch with Finn, trying to explain to him everything, and he won't. So when she finally gets back to Hawaii, she discovers him with another girl, and we're led to believe that he has been sleeping with this girl in Sloane's absence. And, I like this. Again, we're getting tension, stakes are rising, like, we thought that this summer romance was only going to be a fling, serious emotions are involved, and now look what's happening again. I love the chase scene where Sloane has been ignoring Finn, and so finally there comes a point where he will not allow her to ignore him. He wants to talk to her, and so he chases her down, and she's just like all over, and she's just cold shouldering the dude, and I love it. I'm like, I love how strong this girl is, where she's like, you cannot treat me this way. I've already been treated this way once. You're the reason we're having problems right now because I was the one trying to work it out. Then he's just like, look. He just will not let her get away. And so this is where I do have the problem, is because he's like, we never slept together. I'm like, oh man, like, come on. It was so much more interesting when you had betrayed her versus, oh, well, that look I gave you when you asked me the question, it was just a misunderstanding. Like, you misread what I meant. I'm like, nah. It was so much more interesting when this is what you did with your feelings and, you know, the betrayal you thought she had made. Then we all just want her to give in and to love him, and she does, which, whatever. It's a YA. I'll give it to them. I would have preferred her to not almost literally fall into his arms and, you know, kiss and make up, whatever. But yeah, the book ended well, and she chooses to stay with her mom in Hawaii versus going back to Seattle, which I kind of liked, because she has battled with guilt about how ever since mother had left, which was when they were quite young, you know, they don't really have much to do with her, and she feels like maybe her mom thinks that they abandoned her, which is why she always buys them stuff. And so I do like that she chose to stay with her mother, because you could say it was taking the easy way out and not returning home and facing all the mess, but it was just like, you know what, that's not an easy decision either. And, you know, by turning your back on what you did know and kind of looking forward to a future that is fresh and new, I'm with it. You could face all the gross stuff, or you could just say, I'm done with it and I'm going to choose a different path. And that's what she did. So, Summer of Sloane, it was a cute little book, and I would recommend it. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.